Hi guys, it's Leanne from Cozy Home Design, and I wanted to show everybody how to start one of our popular kits. This is called the Happy Fall Floral kit that's for sale on our Etsy shop. It's pretty popular. I say it's good for beginners because it's just a couple of basic things you need to know to get started. But if you've never punched before, I think this video might be helpful for you. So let's get started. When you order this kit, you're going to receive all the yarn you need to create this perfect little wall hanging. You're going to get printed instructions, you're going to get a pattern, a paper pattern that you'll cut out, and you'll also get some monk's cloth. And our monk's cloth, when we send it to you, we have the edges serged, which means it's not going to fray. This kind of looks like it's could fray, but this is actually a finished edge from the bolt. And so you're going to take out your little hoop, and you'll notice it's kind of rubbery and flexible. It's got a cute little hanger on it. And in order to get this on the hoop, you might need to put a little bit of strength to get it to stretch a little bit. Now we want the cloth tight. So what we're going to do after we get it centered and on here, we're just going to go around the edges and we're going to pull it out. Pull it gently so we're not too tough with it. And just kind of go around the edge, pulling till you get the fabric as taut as you want. Okay? Alright, so that's pretty tight. They say they like for it to be drum tight, and if you're working on a bigger piece, you definitely want to use some kind of a gripper frame or something for that. Now, the next thing you're going to do with your paper pattern is you're going to cut around the circle that's already been outlined for you, and you're going to turn this over, and you're going to tape it down. So I just take some tape it in about 3 or 4 places. Now this pattern's pretty easy to see. If you were to hold it up to a light, a window, a well-lit window, you can see through it, and you'll be able to just use your Sharpie and trace it. But if you really like having a light box, or you have a light box you want to use, it can work just as well. And so we're going to take our Sharpie and we're just going to start tracing all these designs, okay? Now, I've already traced it once, so I'm going to save my monk's cloth for another project. And I'm going to show you what it looks like once it's traced. Okay. So we will turn that off. Now, I've already used this earlier, and I'm just going to, again, put it in here, stretch it around. Now, you want the little handle, like if you're going to hang it on the wall, you're going to want to be able to decide, how do I want that to look? Do I want it to be straight up and down? Do I want it a little bit of an angle? And so let's just kind of say that the way I just put it in there is the way you want it. So I'm going to go around and tighten it one more time. And I just wanted you to see every little step so you'll know what we do. Now, if that pattern is still in there and you're tracing, you know, the pattern's there, you're just going to trace around the edges, and your edges don't have to be perfect because essentially you're just covering that with yarn. Okay? Trace it all out. Now, you'll notice on the pattern it says loops. Okay? So in order to get those loops to show up, we have to actually turn this over and trace just the areas that say loops. So since you've already traced it on this side, it's going to show right through. Check your pattern. Just go around and trace the parts that say loops. Because when you get ready to punch those loops, which I'm going to show you in just a minute, you're punching from this side. Okay? So now we're ready to start punching. We've got everything situated. So we're gonna start first. I like to start with the loops. I think that's important to start with. So I'm gonna thread my needle. Okay, just like that. And I did post a little video on how to thread a needle, or basically this needle, so you can go back and watch that too. We're going to try to add more videos that correspond with our kits. So when I start, I don't really need a big long tail because I'm just going to waste my thread if I do that. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to the back, and I'm going to start in the corner, let's just say the top of our flower, and I'm just going to go around the edges of our flower. And I skip, you know, a couple of rows. Just try to make my, you know, my stitches, basically they look like flat sewing stitches, uniform, about the same size. And it's easier for me if I just turn my hoop. The beveled edge of my needle is going in where I want it to. It's going in the direction, or facing the direction that I want it to go in. Now, because this little thread is sticking up, I'm going to snip it so it's out of the way. Okay. And I'm not ripping holes in the cloth. All I'm doing is moving the thread. And then I'm going to kind of think of my rows, my stitching rows, like I'm laying bricks. So a bricklayer doesn't stack them one on top of the other, he staggers them, and he goes to about the middle, starts the second row of bricks, I guess, in the middle of the edge is in the middle of a brick, if that makes sense. And I'm just working my way around. Now if I get tension in my yarn, it's because I'm resting my arm on my yarn or something and it starts to not catch, and then I get these big long loops like this. So I'm simply just going to go back, pull it back tight, and keep going. Now, I send you balls of yarn, but if I happen to send you a couple of sections of yarn and you think, well, that's not long enough, that's not going to, you know, cover that whole area, well, that's okay. You just pick up the next one and load some more yarn in it again and keep going. It's really that simple. I know a lot of times people think, well, is my yarn going to come out? The yarn basically doesn't come out because the weave of the fabric and the loops next to one another kind of help hold everything in place. So we just go back in, and I'll show you what to do with these that are hanging out. But you can see the loops are appearing on this side, the top of the flower. I want to be careful not to punch on top of stitches I've already created. That's why I'm going up and down. Try not to angle everything. You don't want to see a lot of monk's cloth showing through. You notice I'm turning my hoop, I'm turning my needle. I'm going to now just fill in this little area right here. Now, you see my loops have shown up. I'm going to snip. Really need those smaller. Get my smaller scissors out and show you. All right, and then I just pull it out, and so now you see that we've created the loops. Now occasionally you'll see some loops standing up taller. That might be because we accidentally poked them when we were going up and down. If they bother you, you can trim those off. not a big deal. Okay, so now we've got our loops on that flower. We just continue again by turning it over, and then we'll fill in this area right here, okay? And then you would switch thread and use the cream color or the white to create the little, looks like cotton balls. And once you've done all the loops, then you're ready to turn it over and start finishing the top design. And so in order to do that, I know it's going to take a while if I use, do everything, but it would take me too long in this video, so I thought I would just show you some basics. So let's now start doing our flat stitch, which is the base of the flower, okay? You notice it's flat, so we call it the flat stitch. It uses this variegated, really pretty yarn. I'm gonna just pull some over here that I've already cut. And again, load the punch needle using that threader. You always want to keep your threader in a good spot. You don't want to lose your threader for these needles because you won't be able to load it unless you make your own threader out of some wire you might have laying around the house, which sometimes that is a possibility. Okay, so now we've got our loops. We're working back on the top. We want to create the base of the flower. So we're going to hold the loops back, and we're going to simply stick that in there, the needle in there, and I think you might be able to see. And we're just going to start working our way very carefully around the base. And so to do that, I'm just kind of holding back, some of the loops so I don't poke them. And then I'm going to turn my bevel, just work my way around. So I always outline. I want everything outlined first before I fill it in, okay? Now, let's say that you start making a mistake, you don't like the way it looked. Not a big deal, just pull them out. Pull your thread back through. If you want to close those little openings up, you can. And then just continue. It's that simple. It's really not difficult at all. And, it takes practice like anything else. So you just take your time. Get used to the tool. Let's say you want to practice first before you actually start stitching. Easy to do. Just trace it on there. Practice. You don't like how it looks, pull the yarn out. Start all over again. And so then we'll just go around, and you'll see I'm just kind of again going right next to the row that I created. I want to make sure that my thread isn't leaving big tall loops on this side. That means maybe you need to tighten your thread up. Just pull it out a little bit more. Don't pull this way up like this and then go down, because if you do that you end up with a big loop. So just again, every so often, pull it through. If it starts to look like something's wonky, just pull it out, play around with it. That's really the best way to get to know the feel and how you want things to look. So you will see that we are creating stitches that lay flat against the monk's cloth. Easy peasy. And so we just continue this way. So what I would do is I would finish the base of the flowers. Then I would go on and maybe move to my leaves. The leaves have two different color green in them, so I might do everything that's that color, do that first. The last thing you're going to want to do is fill in the background. And the background colors you'll want to fill in first by going around the circle and then filling in with the black. Now, because this yarn was cut already, I may run out, but it looks like I'm going to have enough. When I'm done, I just simply turn it over snip it. Now you'll see on this side, I've got loops appearing, okay? But that's the underneath side, all right? And then I just don't pull anything, just gently trim it all up and then move to every other section so that when you're done, you end up with this. Now on this side, you'll see mostly loops because this is the flat stitch is what we're emphasizing here, not the loops. If you use a lot of loops all the time, then the definition of your art piece just doesn't come through. So you see where the loops are? It's flat on this side, loopy on this side. Then when you're done, what I did here was I trimmed it. You might need some really sharp scissors. You can also add some white flexible glue and let it dry completely before you hang it on the wall. So you're just going to trim around. This is a substantial piece of monk's cloth. It's kind of wasted, so you know, usually if you start making your own designs, you want to take that into consideration too, and just be aware that you want to always serge everything, otherwise it's just going to start falling apart on you. So anyway, I hope that helps you understand how we start and create the loops of each kit. I consider it a beginner's kit because it's very basic in design, but once you get the hang of this, you can move on to other things and create your own designs as well. So anyway, thank you, and check out our Etsy shop. It's called Cozy Home Design Gifts. Thank you.